91X.
Rusty, thanks for sitting down with us today. Grew up in Southern California.
I did.
How do you find time? I know you're probably the busiest guitar player in the world right now. How do you find time to actually have a career, which you've had since you were probably how old?
5.
5
No.
years old.
I'm not Michael Jackson, but the funny thing is I feel like I've been doing exactly the same thing since I was 5, which is trying to play guitar and play music or,
Right.
hang out with my friends and make music.
So how do you, because you have a solo career, you've had a band career,
Yeah.
and then you have this sideman gig that you're doing. That's why you're here in San Diego today.
Right.
How do you manage to do all of this stuff without going crazy, number one? And is it easy to find enough time to go and write songs, record them, produce them, and...
No, it's impossible. I just sort of fit things in cracks, basically. But it's all good. I just feel really, really lucky to be playing music and spending my life doing that. And plus now I have, a family, a 3-year-old daughter. But that's been kind of cool because I sort of was inspired to write a song on the new record called Little One. And it's inspired by her, obviously.
Right. So let's talk about the new album first. Is it self-released? Are you putting this stuff out by yourself? Is it just for
Yeah, it's Oxide Records, which is basically my company, and the new record is a band record, and my guy Todd, who I've been working with before, but we decided to actually sit down in a room and start writing and creating. We're both singing, we're both writing, and it's so it's got kind of a different vibe than the past solo records I've done, and just been getting great reaction, getting airplay here and there and all that stuff, and doing some gigs. We actually played in Iceland about a year or so ago, and that was fun. And we've done gigs around town. We've done there was a show for the new signature model. It's with my name on it. It's
a Gibson, right?
Guitar, yeah.
Right.
And the cool thing about that is that it's a great guitar. Because I was a little worried, like, is this really going to be, something that, is like an addition to the guitar world? There's so many guitars out there, but it's a really cool guitar, and I'm really proud of it. And we did a show too. It was sort of to announce that, and it was the first Rusty Anderson afternoon band show. I love speaking of myself in the third person.
Right.
And it was connected to a charity, NRDC, which is the Natural Resources Defense Council, which is sort of my main charity drive for climate shift and stuff. Anyway, so that was a cool night. So we do these gigs. It's a little harder to do gigs though because I play with Paul McCartney and we tour around, and so like I said, I'm always fitting things in cracks and trying.
So if there's a gap in the schedule of a couple of weeks that looks like it's not going to change, you can sit there and go, okay, I'm going to be able to play here, but it happens to be Iceland. That's a pretty big crack to have to jump into.
Yeah, things just sort of randomly happen. I love that about life, and I think most people you talk to, like, you can never predict the path of where you're going to go or how you got to where you ended up getting in life. So it's been a lot like that for me, very sort of random. Touring with Paul, we go all over the planet anyway. So it's not now; it's just sort of part of the protocol.
Let me take you back to when you were a kid. Do you remember the first moment that you said, like, where you understood that music was something that you had to do? Was there like a moment that you went, I have to do this? Or what was it?
The weird thing was that I'm the youngest of my family, and when I was 5, my older brother, who was the oldest in the family, 19, he died of a kidney thing. And right then, my sister was a little older than me, was playing Beatles records, and I sort of instantly sort of said, real life sucks, music is amazing, and I just went into that world.
That was your escape.
Yeah.
Your brother dies, and it's like, this is my escape from the reality.
Pretty much, yeah. And I think I've sort of been escaping ever since into music. It's sort of.
How old were you?
I was 5.
You were 5.
Yeah.
And you distinctly remember that, and it was Beatles records?
Yeah. And then I started getting into, Hendrix and all that stuff. But
at what point did you go, where the guitar became a part of it? Because you're above and beyond most guitar players as far as the fact that you have to emulate so many people on stage right now, plus be yourself at the same time. So when was it when you went, this works for me, as opposed to keyboards, or drums, or just singing?
I just really focused on it. I mean, when you're 2 years old or 3, you always want to hit all the pots and pans, and I did that.
Right.
But there was something about the guitar that really was for me. It really caught my attention. And I play some keyboards and little harmonica,
Right.
dabble in things. But the guitar is my main instrument, and singing and all that. So.
Do you remember your first guitar?
Yeah. Well, what it was, I was trying to get a guitar that would stay in tune, because I kept getting, pawn shop, not pawn shop guitars, but like plastic guitars and sheet metal guitars and
Right.
stuff like that. And I finally
Things
the
that
first
look like
one,
guitars.
they looked like guitars in the picture. And then I was 8, and my dad gave me a Kent guitar and a Kent amp, like a pawn shop thing. And I was just in heaven, inseparable from that, ever since.
So did you turn to like Pete Townsend locked himself in a room for 2 years
Yeah.
to get the craft done? What was it for you? Just like after school every day, you're living in
Yeah,
La
well,
Habra
I
at this
sort of
point?
said, hey man, let's hang out. You want to be my friend here, or play the bass, or play the drums, or play
Right.
guitar, or, something. And I just, all my friends, that's I forced them to do that.
When did you realize you were good at it? When somebody said that kid can actually play, was that something pretty early on?
Well, I thought I was, the bee's knees when I was 9 or something. And then I saw a local guy, I think I was like 13 or 14, at the music store, just sitting down with an unplugged electric guitar playing for a while. My jaw just dropped, like, oh, okay, that guy can really play. And then I started, you
Right.
sort of go in levels. But, just ignorance is bliss sometimes. It sort of got me to a certain point. And then I started, getting a little more real with, like, what you're really up against. Yeah,
right, the technical part of it. Do you remember, obviously, heroes as far as guitar players? Who was your first, besides Hendrix? That's usually everybody's first.
Right.
But besides Hendrix because did you understand what Hendrix was doing at the time?
No, I mean,
Or did you just go, wow, that sounds really cool, and then went home and never tried?
I think that there's layers. Is if you're a musician and you're studying an instrument, it's like you learn in layers. Maybe 10 years later, you're going, oh, that's what that was. That I thought it was this. Now I realize it's that. But I love Mick Ronson and Ritchie Blackmore, and a lot of. I listen to Debussy and Rachmaninoff, and I'll learn stuff on piano and transfer it to guitar. And I think the more sort of obscure
You're not
influences.
guitar players aren't supposed to do that.
Well,
so you were actually sitting there taking symphonic pieces, transposing them to a guitar with
Right.
retunings, obviously?
No.
It's like a straight
Well,
tune.
that's the thing. See, I've done a lot of the tunings. People get into different tunings and stuff, they're great and amazing. But the problem is then you have to commit a guitar to that tuning all the time, and then you have to show up to gigs with like 50 guitars and stuff.
And
So
that's a pain.
yeah, and I sort of try to stay with basic tunings.
Right.
So yeah, that I kept it like that on purpose. But it does limit you for a certain piece. But then all of a sudden you can't retune it every song.
Nowadays they got those new ones. You just go, it takes to the tuning you
That's
want.
what they all say.
Yeah, but who knows if that works? So take me through. You're still living in La Habra. You're playing in some bands. At what point was it that suddenly you realized that this is it, and you got paid for your first gig, and then somebody comes along and says, "I got to sign this kid." Walk me through some of that stuff.
Well, I was in a teenage band called Eulogy, and we were playing all over the place, and we started to get some visibility and get the name out there and stuff, and eventually through that, manager Mike Jacobs.
That little wink because he's on the other side of the room.
That's right. He's paying me under the table. No, he got the music out of it. It was actually another band called the Living Daylights after that, and he got some music out to different producers and people at record companies, and that started up some relationships. And then I would have bands and sort of started playing other people's records and a lot of.
Tell me a couple that you played on that you were still to this day you can't believe that I played on that record, because I probably played 95% of these things on the radio, and I
Right.
don't know who's actually playing on the record because it's got pictures of people on it that
Right.
that claim
I know. It's a
they-
very different thing, making a record as opposed to like the lip syncing in the video or whatever.
Correct.
So, yeah, Elton John, songs from the West Coast, New Radicals. God, so many. I can't think
Right.
of them all right now.
But right
Sinead
there.
O'Connor, The Wallflowers, Michael Bublé, Bryan Adams, Regina Spektor, Ingrid Michaelson,
Right there. You've covered the whole gamut, everybody from the Elton Johns of the world.
Gwen Stefani, Bangles. That was the first big record I played on was a Bangles record.
Which
With
one?
Walk Like an Egyptian and all that.
Oh, that one. The
Yeah.
first major.
Yeah, first big one. Yeah.
First big major one, because they were on what 313 record, not 313, 33 and a third records or Frontier or something.
I don't know.
Nobody cared about it at one
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, they started off.
They were trying to be the Runaways, the cute Runaways.
Yeah, yeah.
Or whatever it was. So you're the journeyman guy then. You're just going in and they go, here's the charts, or this is what the chord structure is B good, and then you would basically make the sound
Well,
of
I
these
think
records.
the thing I started realizing is that if you can come up with hooks, and like the Ricky Martin song "Livin' La Vida Loca," I played on that.
Right.
And I did it in my home studio like really quickly, and I just said we need some guitar, and so I just started coming up with stuff, and he's like, okay, great, and oh, that's the demo. Oh, that's going to be actually used on the record. Oh, it's the first song on the record. Oh, it's a hit. Oh, it's the number one. You know what I mean? And it's sort
Do
of
you
just,
still hear it as a demo when it's playing in
Oh,
the background?
yeah, it's
Do you
totally-
go like would you have changed anything on it?
Well, oh yeah, it would have changed a lot of things, but maybe that's the charm. I mean, it's a little toony. It's a little. I mean, I just had this crappy guitar in the corner that I tuned down to C sharp and played it, and
Right.
But maybe that's kind of the charm of it.
That's the genius of it. The fact that it's basically the first emotion that you get out of it, and it goes off and it becomes the final product, as opposed to killing something in the studio, which I'm sure you're very familiar with. Like,
Yeah.
how many takes can you do to something before it doesn't have any soul left in it?
Right. Well, it's yeah. There's been a lot of amazing songs that have had 40 takes, and some that are first and
Yeah,
combinations
first, right.
thereof.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Tell me about the Edna Swap era, because obviously we here in San Diego played a few tracks from you guys.
Oh, right.
And and Carla's been, I don't want to say a friend, but I just adore her. I think
Yeah.
she's one of the most amazing drummers on the planet.
Yeah.
And every time she's come, whoever she's playing with, Jack White or whatever it is, my point is to go watch her do what she does.
Yeah.
How did
she's got
that
a
band
thing.
come about? Because it
Well,
just
I
seems
was
so unbelievably musical compared to everything else that was happening at the time.
Yeah, I was friends with Scott and Ann. Ann was a singer. Scott was a rhythm guitarist, and Paul Bushnell I also knew, bass player. Sort of local people, and Scott and Ann were doing a lot of songwriting and blah blah blah. Anyway, so we got together, brought in Carla, and that was the band, and it was 5 Type A personalities. Just like the chemistry was very.
Explosive?
Explosive, yeah. And so I learned a lot in that band, and I thought, we did a lot of cool stuff. I didn't totally get it as much until later. Like, I sort of understand the band now a lot more than I did at the time. But, in fact, it was very trippy seeing, I just saw that movie, Frank. Have you seen it?
No.
Oh, and it's about a band, a very, crazy indie band. And Carla is the drummer in it. She's, the
Is she
drummer.
acting or is she being herself?
Somewhere in between. Yeah, so, and that brought back a flood of memories from being,
Right.
in
That's kind of crazy. It's good that you realize now the importance of what you were doing then, because I think it's the forest for the trees. While you're in it, you can't see what you're doing because you're looking at it from the inside out.
Exactly.
And walk me through how did you run into Paul? Because obviously you've been with Paul for, it seems, forever now.
Yeah.
How many years has it been now that you've been working with him?
Well over a decade, yeah.
How did that come about? Because obviously you, being from Southern California, you're not like this, English studio. You're not the Jimmy Page of the world, where you're just sitting there doing sessions. You're living in Southern California. How did that come about?
Well, like I said, I played on a lot of records, and a producer, David Kahn, that I'd known for a long time, he brought me in, and the drummer Abe, to play on a record because he just got the gig with Paul, And that sort of just turned into the band. It kept going, and it felt good, and it was a good chemistry, and yeah.
Is that, Mike, is that an alarm or something?
It's my phone
Oh, it's
going
your phone.
off.
Okay. Sorry. I just know it was one of my alarms that I'd set for something.
I think Mike's trying to figure out how to operate an iPhone. You have an iPhone, right?
He's used to
You know what? There's a switch on the side. You can turn it off.
just go push it down the down.
But if you can remind me to turn it back on again, that's what I always screw up. So. No, it's black. Here.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's too many iPhones in the world now.
Song title.
Too many iPhones in the world? Yeah. Too many.
Too many iPhones, not enough love. Something like
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'll take the co-write on that one. So David Kahn calls you up.
Yeah.
Calls you up. You'd work with him on the Bangles record, right?
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
remember him producing everything that was on the Columbia era.
Yeah.
He seemed like the house producer for that stuff. So he calls you up and says, "What? I need you to play on something." Does he tell you what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, we're friends, and we're talking on the phone. And he says, "Well, I'm actually, I think I'll be doing the new Paul McCartney record." I thought, "Wow, that's fantastic." I said, "That's great. You guys seem like a great fit. I really loved all the things that David has done over the years, and obviously Paul's Paul, and amazing." So then he sort of says, "Well, I think I might need some guitar playing." I'm like, "Great, count me in." And then a couple months later, I didn't tell a lot of people because it's Hollywood, and I didn't want to jinx it and all that.
Yeah.
And then I walked into the studio, and there was a group of English folks, and I started meeting people, and then I met Paul, and it took me about 3 days sort of to get used to hanging out with him, and just like being relaxed.
It's
took a
weird you
while.
say that because you played on a lot of records
Yeah.
for a lot of people that are major hits.
Right.
But what is it that because obviously for the layman like me,
Yeah.
meeting him, doing that kind of stuff, and first of all being invited to the studio, but you've done this. You've made records better in the past. So walking into a Paul McCartney world,
Well,
I mean, was it the reverence because you were a kid growing up listening to
Well,
this stuff?
it's funny because there's the adult professional me, and then there's the kid me. So the adult professional me, within half an hour or less, we were basically just jamming and rocking it. And when you're playing music, it's such a great built-in communication.
Right.
And so I think that felt really natural and just free and easy and lovely. And then hanging out, the kid me, like, for example, when I was about maybe 7 or something, I had dreams that the Beatles would come to the door, ding dong, hey, you want to play, And so they went their guitars and stuff. And so, cut to a couple weeks in, working in the studio with Paul, and he comes in the morning, and we're saying, hey, how's it going? How have you been? Blah, blah, blah. And he says, I had a dream about you last night, mate. And so that was like a full circle.
Did you tell him? Did you tell him that you had a dream?
Not at the time, no. But
because it seems weird, doesn't it? Because he's still Paul McCartney.
yeah.
That's hilarious, Rusty. That's hilarious.
The media is just such a crazy thing, though. When you think about it, like you feel like you know these people, and sometimes for me, I forget who I know and who I don't know, or who knows me back.
Right.
Because it's just the nature of communication in media, and especially now with YouTube and everything.
There's a film called It Might Get Loud. I don't know if you saw it, where
Yeah.
Jimmy Page and The Edge and Jack White got together. And growing up in Detroit, for me, our goal was just to steal everything from everybody. And so when Jack White goes, I'm just going to pilfer everything I possibly can from these. So he's looking at Jimmy Page's, like, how he actually does the riff. Because there wasn't YouTube back in those days. So when he was in the studio playing Whole Lotta Love, nobody knew what he was actually doing. Was he hammering? Was he strum? What was he doing? Were there times in the studio where you'd look over and go, because he plays everything from guitar, bass, everything. He plays everything, right? He's done solo records. He's played every record. So did you ever go over and go like, how the fuck do you do that? Is there still that kind of like the kid mentality where you're trying to figure out how he's done it?
Well, I think that back for the first week or two, sure. But now, we've been doing it so long, and everybody is good friends, and it's just a pretty much a well-oiled machine, and which you kind of need to get to that point in order to create.
Right.
Because if you're too busy like pinching yourself all the time, it starts to hurt and you get distracted. You know, you wanted.
You still got a job to do.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this then,
And it's just a natural progression, evolution of it.
Because obviously the catalog is probably more massive than any other catalog.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and you probably have to keep adding to it and subtracting from it. What have you noticed on the full-on nerdly geeky thing, that the early recordings, if you're basically impersonating whoever it was that was playing the guitar part, did you notice the difference between what John and George had done from album 1 to, you know, album 10 or whatever it was? Was there like something in your geeky guitar brain that's going, man, what a complete change up? Because in the early days they wrote, I don't want to say some pretty simple songs, and they were covering tons and tons of Motown stuff back in those days.
Right.
But is there something in your head that tells you, like, you know, they really, you know, over the years, from whatever it was, studio trickery, what was it that made it? Because you have to do it all now. You're basically doing everything.
Well, you know, there's a few components. One is you want to make sure you get the, you know, the essence and the spirit and the hooks and those classic melodies of these amazing songs, and you don't want to screw it up, and people expect that. But at the same time, it's a living, breathing thing. That's the thing about this band, you know, with Paul, and everything is sort of recreated every night. It's not on click tracks or any of that stuff.
Right.
It's actually live, real music with human beings playing it. And so I know for me, I'll throw my spin on it and have my sound on it. And there's also the glue factor of you're playing for like 2.5, 3 hours straight through the same gear basically. And so there's just an automatic stylization that happens that keeps it living and breathing. You know, I mean, to me, it's the only way to do it. I'll improvise some stuff. Some things are different every night, and other things aren't as much.
Right. So now that this has been going on for over a decade, when you go out and do your solo stuff now, are you more professional now than you were before? Is there something that's changed in you because, you know, you've actually had to deal with this whirlwind of you know, what goes on in the McCartney world versus what you do when you go out there and do stuff?
I mean, the whole social aspect has completely changed because as a guy, I'm basically an introvert that's been forced out of his shell.
Right.
You know, and for example, we're you know, years ago we're playing the Queen's Jubilee, and there's all these people there at Clapton and the guys in Queen and Phil Collins and, you know, Ray Davies and whoever, and so I'm hanging out.
Your heroes in essence.
Yeah,
like guys that you grew up.
Yeah.
Going. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm I think Ozzy Osbourne and Tony Iommi are there playing their thing, and I'm talking to Tony Iommi backstage and really excited by it because it was a big influence, you know, the whole Black Sabbath thing, and Paul's like right around the corner, and I said, Tony, have you ever met Paul? And he says, no, I never have. I said, oh my God, let me introduce you. So Paul walks up. I said, hey, Paul, this is my friend Tony, you know, one of the greatest guitar players ever. He goes, ever? And I said, well, yeah, Black Sabbath, right? And he goes, oh, tell him about your Black Sabbath story. And then he walks away. So my
So he hangs you out to dry.
Yeah, basically. And my Black Sabbath story was that I was maybe in 8th grade or something, and we were going to see them play. And everybody was really excited and going, wow, it's going to be really loud. I hear they have like stacks of amps and fuzz boxes and, you know. And so I thought, where can we get earplugs? So I go, I'll be right back. And I go to the bathroom, my mom's bathroom, and I grab some cotton stuff. And I come back, and I'm like, we could use these. And they have little strings on them, so you can pull them out. And my friends are going, Rusty, I think those are tampons. So I'm like, oh, okay, note to self. That's what those things were.
I'm so embarrassed for you. So Tony has to listen to this story.
Yeah. So, but Tony, you know, loved it, I guess. I don't know, hated it. So there's all these crazy, you know, all these crazy things. Or when
that's got to be in the movie.
That same night, actually, I went to the party after the whole thing was over, and we're in Buckingham Palace playing, right? And everybody's hanging out, the Queen and the da-da-da-dee. And I'm talking to Steve Winwood and some other people, and then a man and a lady walk up, and we start talking to them, and I said to the man, I said, "Hi, my name's Rusty. What's your name?" And I shake hands, and he's blah blah blah, right? And then the lady said, "Hi, it's good to meet you. My name's Rusty. What's your name?" She says, "What's my name? What's my name? I'm Princess Anne." I'm like, "Oh, excuse me, I'm American," you know. But it's just that
you became the bad tourist at that point.
yeah, exactly. It's just I'm this guy
You're
grew
the
up in
music
Southern
nerd,
California,
yeah.
music nerd, and all of a sudden I'm thrust into all these situations
Where
and-
everybody in England knows who she is because she's
Yeah.
Princess Anne.
Yeah,
that's
Princess Anne.
that's hilarious. That is hilarious. Thank you so much for talking to us. Is there anything you want to add? Do you remember any stories of coming down to San Diego when you were younger? Because everybody who lives in Orange County comes down for either the zoo,
Yeah.
and they always try to reenact the Pet Sounds album cover. That's the one they always get from bands, or the nights in TJ where they barely remember making it across the border. Anything like that for you when you were?
Well, we should actually probably talk about the new record a little bit more.
Yes.
So you have that on there.
I want to know if you're coming here. That's the reason I'm bringing this up. Are you coming to San Diego when this whirlwind is done? Will you play a date in San Diego?
I'd love to. Hopefully you can hook it up. Yeah. As far as San Diego, let's see. I mean, I've been to the zoo a number of times. It always was, a fantastic place to go.
Right.
I especially like the Footsie Wootsie they have there, which is this big thing. You've been walking around for hours.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah.
put your feet on, it goes, "Rrrr," and it's industrial strength. It's great.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I love San Diego. It's a great, amazing spot. We've done a number of gigs. I've been, I think I was in a band called the Living Daylights. We played down here a number of
Right.
times. I think I've played here at least once as a solo artist. With Paul, I think this is the first time that I've ever played with him here.
Yeah.
So that's
We
exciting.
did a ton of research. 67 with the Wings thing is a sports arena, and before
Or
that
maybe
it was
77.
Sorry, no, you're right. 70.
It'd be in the 70s.
76, the Wings Over America tour.
Right.
The previous time was 48 years ago in 1 month at Balboa Stadium, which
Good
is
memory.
now part. Well, I had to do this massive amount of research because I blogged it. But
Okay.
bottom line was, it's been forever since he's done anything here. But more importantly, when you get the break and you get that chance to fill in the cracks, will you come to San Diego? I would love to have you do something live on the air with me.
Yeah.
Play
I'd love
stuff
to.
off the new record and the other records as well, and go back through your career, and then go to a club and watch you do what you do, where it's not. I mean, because obviously, what's happening here with this stuff is one thing, but as an artist, I don't mean to put. It's like when Hendrix was in the Isley Brothers, it's one thing. When Hendrix broke out on his own, people went, "Oh, that's what he is."
Yeah.
But the Isley Brothers were pretty unbelievable at the time when he was doing what he was doing there. But they recognized the fact this guy's beyond just some guy sitting in the back playing those
Right.
riffs. And you're the same kind of guy to me. You have already a catalog of stuff that should be appreciated beyond the fact that, oh, that's the dude that plays
Well, thank
with,
you.
with Paul McCartney. And because from Southern California, so will there be a break? Can you come back? Will you sit on the radio with me and talk and play records that
Absolutely,
you grew
yeah.
up on? That's what I'd love to hear.
Let's do it.
Your influences and play tracks from not just the brand new one, but the other stuff as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me about let's. Did he play?
Well,
with-
Todd is from the '88. You know the '88.
I do. Yeah.
And all this stuff was recorded at my house in a home studio, and so we basically just would get together and write and record. It was this really organic process over time. Like I said, fitting in the cracks between our other stuff, and eventually it just came to fruition. But I know some people say it's better to leave your house and put your pants on.
To go to work.
Yeah, to go to work, exactly. But I sort of preferred to
Do it in your undies.
be home and without pants.
And your in your robe and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing you do some solo stuff down here. When I say solo, it's as you said, it's really more of a band.
It's a band. It's called Rusty Anderson Afternoon. And
How did you get that name?
it just sort of had a flow to it. I don't know.
It wasn't something like the Sammy Hagar Weekend. Do you remember that song from
No.
Thelonious Monster? You ever heard that song? It was one of the.
I've heard of Thelonious Monster.
Yeah, that was Bob's project after or before the Bicycle Thief. But so Rusty Anderson Afternoon.
That's it.
Okay, that's perfect. We're gonna do that. Give me an idea when. 5 months, 6 months? Do you know how long this?
December.
December. You
Yeah.
can actually come down in December then.
Maybe I'll make a special trip.
I would love to see that because we've got amazing club stuff happening here in San Diego. Tons of amazing bands that are happening still, and I don't want to see you fit right in, but you're a Southern California boy. So
That's right.
that's the way to do it.
Yeah, you can't
Rusty,
take it out of me.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing
Thank
this.
you, Mike.
And we will chat soon.
91